Hey, welcome to the Fantasy Hockey Picks and Bets show here on the Mayo Media Network. I am Matt Moody, joined by DJ Mitchell to cover March 9th, Tuesday, NHL slate. DJ, how you doing?
I love the hey at the beginning of the show. Really threw me for a loop the first time on that one. Matt, way to keep everyone on their toes. That's right. I'm doing great. I mean, it's Tuesday. The week is moving. The Sabres are sabering. It's going very well. I think this is one of the funner DFS slates that we've seen all season with the NBA and All-Star break. So very, very fun, very interesting. A lot of big money is going to be awarded to people lucky enough and smart enough to win it. And if you're here, you're probably one of those people who are smart enough to be here. So Matt, I definitely want to get right into it. I don't want to get carried away like we did talking about St. Bonaventure endlessly on the other show. We don't need to do that here. I know many listeners want us to, but we won't do it here. I know they're in the A10 championship, Matt. I know. Okay. But we'll keep moving.
Hey,
so Matt,
look, if you guys want DJ to host an A10 college basketball show right here on the Mayo Media Network, make sure you reach out to Pat Mayo and just let him know, let him know what the people want. But no, it is great. This will cover a lot on this slate, obviously, with 9 games being played Tuesday night, 8 of them being on the, DFS main slate. But if you're here just for bets and you've never dipped your toe into fantasy, this is the night to do so. Like, I'll be honest, NBA's on a break, obviously, so the prize pools are just ginormous. We're looking at $50K to first in the $10 over on DraftKings. Like, it's just an insane, these are not normal prize pools. So it's a great way to sort of, throw in your lotto ticket. Like, just listen to what we talk about, make sure you correlate your lineups and see if you, get the payout. Definitely do recommend you do that. But before we start talking about the rest of the slate, I want to talk to you about Prize Picks. So again, just another way to enjoy your fantasy hockey night. Head on over to prizepicks.com and create your entries. What you're doing is you are picking the over-under on a series of fantasy scores for the, hockey players on Tuesday night slate. You get 3 points for a goal, 2 points for an assist, and a half point for a block or a shot. It's super simple. Make sure you head over there, use promo code MMN, as in Mayo Media Network, and get your sign-up bonus of a match deposit bonus up to $100. So, DJ, anything else before we start talking about Tuesday?
No, I think we should just get right into it. We have the Rangers at the Penguins as the first game, the lone 6 o'clock game. This slate does kind of have a nice, 6 o'clock, 7 for the next 6 games, and then a 7:30, 8:30 if you're on the East Coast. So if you're on the West Coast, even earlier, but it's going to end early, so you can kind of have the full sweat and tilt before you go to bed. You're not up till 1 a.m. Praying for a point or a shot on goal or something. So makes it a little bit better. But we'll get right into it with the Rangers at the Penguins. In this matchup, we have the Penguins at minus 150, the Rangers at plus 128. Both of these teams, I think, are lacking a little bit defensively, if you will. So the 6 over under is where it sits right now. So Matt, do you have an initial lean on this game? Anything that you're kind of looking to key in on here?
Yeah, this game looks pretty close on paper. So I really kind of feel like I'm leaning just immediately towards this Rangers side. Was a bit surprised to see 15-8 against the spread for the Rangers, on the season. It's, Pittsburgh 8-16. So when the underlying numbers are sort of pointing me toward the Rangers, and then those numbers just sort of point out what has happened, I kind of do think that that the Rangers team does offer a slight amount of value here. The over-under of a 6, I think that's right on the nose. Neither of these teams have really gone too wide open as of late. So, I guess, do you sort of share the same sentiment, or do you have any thoughts on this one?
It's funny. This is the only kind of back-to-back-ish game we have on the entire slate, with them both playing against each other on Sunday. It actually was a 5-1 Penguins with Pittsburgh at home. All of the goals kind of coming from not all of them, a lot of them coming from Kapanen assisting and scoring. It's very weird. So it hits right at 6. And I do think 6 is a really good number. I probably just won't touch it because I just don't think it's worth putting the money against it. And you're not really going to be getting a lot of equity on it, minus 110, minus 110 right now. I just feel like just funner, more interesting bets to place here that I just wouldn't do it personally. I think that the upside is just not there. It's not like a clear misprice. Like I think there's some other over-unders that are like a heck of a lot more. But let's just kind of get right into it. So,
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, no. So I'll take it away from there. So over the weekend, we did see that at least on Sunday that they did scratch Colin Blackwell. He's a guy we talked about last week as being on that top power play unit in place of Artemi Panarin. We're not exactly positive if that remains the case here, but if he's a scratch, it looks like Pavel Buchnevich got the bump from power play 2 to power play 1. Buchnevich is a guy that I know, DJ, you love, the heck out of. He's playing on the top line with Zibanejad. We did get a look at Phil Hedl on the top line on Sunday. So, that's a guy who we came into the season with real high hopes for. Unfortunately got hurt, and I think he missed about a month. So, to see him sort of come back and maybe get a boost onto the top line, if not him, Lafreniere, I think that's certainly the first place I'm looking, on the Rangers side. So I see Pavel Buchnevich to score a goal at plus 275. That is, that is better, or I guess better to bet on odds than a guy like Jared McCann. And plus 275 for Buchnevich, top power play billing. I think that definitely makes a lot of sense. And then you could take a stab at a guy like Lafreniere or Phil Hedl, but I think Buchnevich is just a clear value there. So do you disagree or anything?
No, I definitely agree. And if you want to get a little bit safer with it, if you have a parlay going and you want to include this game, Buchnevich minus 114 for a point, Kreider minus 109 for a point, or Zibanejad minus 134 for a point. It all seem pretty fair to me. These top guys for the Penguins are priced pretty out of consideration. Gensel minus 195 is like a little bit of note, but I'm not that keen on it. I would rather just kind of get one of those Rangers guys here. Like I think they'll score more than one goal. And if they score 2 or 3 goals, it would be well within the realm that one of those guys is on it. Unfortunately, Buchnevich hasn't been the primary rate shooter as of late. He has had it in the past. I think he bodes well to get over the 1.5 they have listed on DraftKings Sportsbook right now, but minus 225 is just ridiculous. Like it's just not worth it. Just take the point with one of those other guys. It's a lot more fun. But are there any shot props here that you do like?
I mean, honestly, if there's, there's 9 games, if you're stringing together some crazy parlay, even at those ridiculous odds, I think 75% of the time that, Buchnevich gets the 2 shots on goal he needs, especially for a top power play job. So I don't feel terrible, just throwing that one in my parlay. I don't love it, of course, because it is really bad odds, but I do think that, you crunch the numbers, you run this slate 10,000 times. I think Buchnevich gets there far more often than, minus 225 even, just because in the past, other seasons in the league, he's been a primary rate shooter. Like he's been the guy firing the puck. So because it hasn't happened yet this season, I don't think is indicative that it's not there. I think there's a lot of weirdness with him in particular because of the struggles with Mika Zibanejad. So I'm not really, I'm probably just throwing that out more than anything else. But
lastly, one more thing, Matt. This is a pretty decent size showdown slate, 2K to first. Are you interested in playing that by chance? And if you were, do you just want to give maybe one news note pick guy you're thinking about? I'm not sure if you have it up. If you don't have it up, take a second.
Yeah, no, I honestly don't have it up, but I will say that I'm sure that Buchnevich is a guy who stands out to me.
11.1. He's
for the captain. 7.4 then. Yeah. So I think that's a pretty good price. But what you gonna do? Phil Hedl though, if he moves on to that top line, he will also be pretty cheap.
Yeah.
So
5'8" as a flex player.
Really?
Very nice there. Yeah.
Okay.
Not terrible, but not quite as I was hoping he'd like minimum salary. But no. So I just wanted to point that out that 2K to first seems pretty fun for that game. So if you want to play a showdown, if you like showdowns, definitely do that. And tweet at us. And
I do love me some showdown.
I know you love the showdown. That's why I wanted to mention it. Okay. Let's finally move over to the next game. We have Boston at the Islanders definitely a 5.5 that I think a lot of people might consider the under on. I don't know if this is my favorite game by any stretch to go crazy on. I think the under is a fair bet. Islanders plus 100, Bruins minus 117 on the road. Matt, where are you leaning? What are you thinking? What are you going to do?
Yeah, I can't really do the home dog bit here because it's plus 100. So technically they're underdogs, but you're getting even money on the Islanders. I like the Islanders here. yes, they beat the Sabres 3 times, and that's, basically a given at this point. But they did it with, they were convincing, let's say, and the underlying numbers are there to support them. The Bruins coming off of a real tough loss to the Devils. They didn't even score a goal against the Devils. What are they going to do against the Islanders? I think that this Islanders team is just playing really well right now. They look dominant. Their numbers are dominant. So I'm happy to take the Islanders. I think a bit of value, at home. So that's my initial read here. I kind of feel like I also like the over, but I'm not quite as confident in that one. Like I do think that the Islanders, probably win this one more often than the over hits, let's say. So I think I'm sticking to my Islanders side there. But any players in this game stand out to you from a player prop perspective?
Well, they don't have the over for Pasternak shots at 9. So I guess they're not sure or didn't see his 10 shot on goal game. Honestly, I do kind of like that 3.5 over. He seems to really be picking up the shots right now and being the primary guy for the 5-on-5 and power play with Bergeron and Marchand. So I do like the 3.5. Minus 134 isn't my favorite odd in the world, though. I was kind of hoping it'd be closer to even money. But I do think that, if they're struggling to score, they're just going to give him the puck on his stick and let him shoot. Other than that, a lot of these odds, not my favorite. I don't know if there's one in this game that I'm actively considering in a parlay. I just don't think it's a game that I need to force something in on that I'm not in love with. So Pasternak shot over, and then the rest I'm pretty just not interested in more than anything else. But Matt, is there anything that you're more interested in that maybe I'm missing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking maybe these goal odds seem kind of bad from basically from all these guys, because I do think that, Boston does get a hit. They take a hit from playing the Islanders, and then the Islanders do spread around a lot of their offense. I think getting Brock Nelson plus 295 anytime goal is okay. And then 15-1 on first goal. He's just playing really well. He's putting up goals basically against everyone at this point. So I think that that's a decent value there. But if I want to get real crazy, a guy like Ryan Pulock, 29-1 first goal with the cannon he has from the point. I don't know. I like it. He's been shooting the puck a bunch lately. So, maybe something crazy like that. But in general, I'll just stick to the safe stuff. The Islanders money line, I think, is my favorite bet here.
Very, very fair. So that would take us over to the Flyers and Sabres game in Philly. I'm wearing my favorite Flyers jersey that they ever wore. So get on the YouTube channel if you're not. Check that out. I'm not a big Flyers fan, but you gotta own one of these, right, Matt?
Of course. I mean,
of course.
I don't own any jerseys. But...
I am going to get a player put on the back of this one. So tweet to me who you think I should. Between a few guys, do I spoil the names, or I'll let you be creative. Be as creative as you want with that. A player that played with this jersey. Don't make it get connecting. I'm not going to do that. A player that wore this jersey. Give me a tweet. Anyways, though, this game, Flyers massive favorites as to be expected. The Sabres haven't won a game since. I don't even know when.
Vietnam, maybe?
I was thinking Vietnam, at least the conflict there.
One of the worst, yeah.
Right around then. Flyers minus 120, 145, 245.
245, Jesus.
245 at home. Sabres plus 205. There we go. Sabres are terrible. Flyers have played decently well. 5.5 over under. I think that's where I'm going here, though, is the over. Matt, where are you leading?
What if the Sabres score a goal?
That's the over hits.
This game.
It sounds like an ESPN 30 for 30. What if I told you the Sabres scored a goal?
What if I told you these guys at least I have stacked the Sabres in DFS and gotten exactly 1 point out of Jack Eichel's last 4 games? It's lurking. I don't know if this is the exact spot, especially from a betting perspective. I don't quite think the lines make a ton of sense for placing a bet on. Getting the Sabres as plus 205 dogs is just, it feels fine. And I bet a lot of the models and stuff will tell you that it's a good bet, but the models don't know the heart and the soul of the Sabres that is somewhere else. yeah, it's all a mess, basically, is to say. So the sum of the parts is far less than what it looks like. So I think I'm staying away from betting on the sides of this game. I do think the over, though, is a good bet. Obviously the Flyers can get there on their own, but also the Sabres team does, they got shut down by the Islanders. Let's call it what it was. But they did have their chances. They generated chances fine. Their power play is still a really, really good power play, even despite their 5-on-5 struggles. So there are numbers pointing toward this game being a bit more high-paced than I think a 5.5 would, allow for. So I think that's my favorite bet here. Just take the value, root for goals. Watching the Sabres game, rooting for goals. You would have thought it wouldn't have worked, but on Hockey Day in America, by God, they did it. They came through. They hit an over for us. I think they lost 5-2 in that one. But
beautiful.
So yeah. So
I feel like I've never seen it. Well, first off, the goal by Barzal. I mean, we have to at least just pay homage. The best part was against Ristolainen. That's the best part of the whole thing. Then the Sabres show some life and look like they actually have some pride in their play, and then immediately fell off a cliff.
Jeff Skinner scored a goal, and then Brandon Davidson fell down.
Yep. Yeah. Brandon Davidson literally forgot to play hockey. Controller disconnect.
Yeah. I don't know, but
we could do this all night. But so I think the two things in this game that I'm most interested in are Jacob Voracek to score plus 300. I do think that he is a decent regression candidate for a goal. That's the first thing I wanted to get to here. In the last game, oh my God, why can't I find their lines? He played with Giroux and Patrick. It's potentially going to change. I'd like to see what ends up happening. But Voracek in a good power play role, kind of seemingly becoming a shot taker on the 5-on-5 and the power play. Giroux and Patrick are just more setup guys, and that is their role. Patrick, not most games you're going to look at, he's going to have one shot on goal or less. Voracek's the guy they want shooting that puck. This odd just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Plus 300 for him, with that role. The other one, if the lines stay, Dylan Cousins plus 475 for a goal. That is with Eichel and Hall, two just premier setup guys, whether you want to admit it or not. I mean, they can't score. We know that. So they might as well try to set up Dylan Cousins if that sticks. Now, they did move Reinhart back to the top line at some points in that game. So I have suspicions that Cousins won't be there. But without power play one time, he still had 18 minutes of ice time last game. So huge minutes, a very skilled player. If he's playing with Hall and Eichel, two guys that could gain the zone with ease, two of the best guys at joining making something happen on the rush. And Cousins being a recipient is pretty likely. So that's kind of where my head's at. I think the Hall to get a point, again, is pretty fair. Minus 125. If you like this to go over, I think him getting a point is really within the realm of possibility. So
yeah, I'll throw one more out there. The Claude Giroux point. Minus 155. I think that's a really good bet. We are seeing a 1A, 1B type power play setup for Philly. So, don't really read into if it says power play one next to certain guys. We don't really know who the first over the boards is going to be. And the way that Drew and Voracek are playing at this point, I do think, getting pieces of them at DFS and, betting wise, I think that's my favorite place to go player wise in this game. So,
any shot props before we move on? I know we've kind of taken a while here, but
I think obviously if you can find a Voracek 2.5 minus 120, 130-ish, that would be great. That's not here in front of us, unfortunately, but I do think you can get away with a Sean Couturier over 2.5 minus 114. He's been rock solid, just putting up points, putting up goals. So I think that's a good number on him.
Okay, let's move it on over now to the Devils at the Capitals. So this game is a 6 right now, over under. Capitals heavy favorites at home, minus 195. Devils plus 165. I mean, I like the Capitals in this matchup for sure. The Devils did get that win against Boston, the shutout, the old Scott Wedgwood game that we all called before it even happened. I mean, we were all in on it. So I think the Capitals take the win here, though, for sure. The 6 over under, I'm pretty indifferent on it. I just feel like the Devils have really changed. They changed their lines to a point where I'm wondering what they're doing. It's like they're trying to create shutdown, maybe narrative, or I don't even know. In the last game, I mean, we saw the Zacha, Maltsev, Palmieri line run the show as the first unit. I never have heard him all said before the year started, but line one, why not? Guys like Jack Hughes got 15 minutes of ice time with Janssen and Bratt. Janssen, the least amount of ice time of any forward. So I don't know what they're doing. It does feel like they're trying to like change the pace of the game from what they were doing before. I like the under here a little bit. I'm not high on it. I just don't see the Devils producing more than 1 or 2 goals. So you got to get Ovi to really put it together. So Matt, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, it's I think you pretty much pointed out exactly what the Devils were trying to do there. They were trying to deaden the pace, and they're not a great team, but recently, I've mentioned it when they have had really high pace games. Recently, that's not really been the case with them, and maybe personnel has something to do with that. But it worked for them over the weekend, so maybe we see that happen yet again. So that's a spot with the Devils entirely. I just want to stay away. I feel like the Washington money line is still a fine bet. Kind of comparing that to the Sabres game, I don't really see the Devils being that much better. And I kind of feel like Washington's just playing better than the Flyers are at this point. I mean, hell, we saw that happen. What a pretty convincing 3-1 victory for Washington over Philly. So just playing that game of, apples to oranges type comparisons, I just think that Washington does make for a fine value here. I'm honestly kind of tempted to pull the trigger on this OV over 4.5 shots on goal prop plus 120. I
feel good about it too. I hate it, but I love
it's
it.
dangerous. But I just really like that top line of they went back to Backstrom, Oshie, and Ovi. No Tom Wilson in the fold for the foreseeable future, so it's not like there's that lurking threat of line swapping. Like of course, Vrana, whoever else could come up, but it's not that likely. Kuznetsov, Eller back in the fold. No need to play Oshie at center, so that line just is their power play correlated. They're obviously 5-on-5 correlated, and I think TJ Oshie was basically a bad bounce away from a 3-point game on Sunday. So I like getting him. His to score prop is not the best value in the world at plus 210. But I do think, if you wanted something slightly longer than say Ovi to score at plus 105, that you could definitely go with TJ Oshie here and not feel too bad about it. I just think the spot's really good here for both those guys playing with one of the best passers in the world in Nick Backstrom.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, it's tough because I think all my favorite things in this game, they kind of price correctly, like the multi-point OV game plus 190. Just doesn't feel like you need to do it. I'd rather just take his over 4.5 shots. I mean, they're definitely trying to get him on the power play. Over the past couple of weeks, he's not returned to full form as far as a rate shooter, but he's in the top 10 in the league. I think most nights he's going to hit 5 or more. The 3 games previous to the last Flyers game, he did. Even though the Devils are slowing pace, their power play is so bad. I mean, their penalty kill is so bad that I really like Ovi to get a couple of chances, put 3 or 4 pucks on net there, and maybe even score one. So that's kind of where my head's at, is either the goal prop for Ovi or the double point or his shots.
Yeah. Cool. So let's move on from there over to Nashville at Carolina. Carolina minus 215 here, giving them a lot of credit here against the Nashville team that hasn't been getting it done. They're 11-14 on the season. But how do you feel about that? Are you sort of buying this Carolina? Like they're being priced now as one of the absolute premier teams in the league, and I think that's right. But do you agree with that?
No, I think it's right. I just don't feel like it's worth the bet. It's at home. I think they win, but minus 215 is, again, I'm just not going to do it personally. It's just not the way I like to bet. 1 or 2 bounces, and the Carolina goaltending is their Achilles heel. It hasn't been too bad this year, but it definitely can break again. So I'm just not going to put my money on them to win, even though I think it's pretty likely. I think you could find odds that are just, you're going to get better equity on them, and I think they're very good. So I'm not going to force myself into something of this nature. I'm leaning on the over 5.5, decently heavy. I like that a lot more than taking the Carolina side. I like the over. I think that Nashville has gotten the power play figured out enough, and have realized they have this supreme goal scorer in Tolvanen, who I been touting pretty big. Matt, you've been also touting pretty big, and it's come to fruition for sure. His to score prop is, I can't even find it. Am I losing my mind? Oh, there it is. Plus
350.
350. Which I think if you just every night put $10 on that until it gets, a lot lower, or worse, if you will, that's pretty fair. Svechnikov 195. I think he's in a great spot once again to score. And then the Svechnikov shot prop is just, minus 118. Like, okay, 2.5. Come on. Like, they just don't want to price it correctly. So just keep taking it.
All Svechnikov is done. He's hit that over in his last 5 games and 6 of his last 7. Like, just it's free money. Like, come on, people. Like, just get on board. Just
Why
line
take
up
Carolina? Like, when you could just take Svechnikov.
Yeah, no, it's like there's it should.
What
be,
is more likely to happen? That Svechnikov over or Carolina win?
Right. I honestly feel like if Carolina loses, Svechnikov is more likely to go. It's just it's exactly that. It's just not priced properly. We say it every freaking time we do the show, and they never change it. And one of these days, I'm just gonna say screw the DFS, screw everything else. Like it's more fun, but like just put all my bankroll into these Svechnikov overs. And I would be up so much money on the year. It's just kind of like what am I doing here? But
the wrong things.
Exactly. So I also think that Aho, you pointed out, he's been shooting a bit more. Yes, he's slightly worse odds, minus 134, but I even do think that one's in play if for some reason you aren't a big Andrei Svechnikov person. But yeah, I kind of agree with you on the over in this game. Like, the fact that Nashville has their power play seemingly figured out is a giant leap forward from the Nashville team of the last year and a half, 2 years. Like, when Forsberg's on his game, of course, he can pick corners with the best of them. But he just didn't have any support, any guys he could really pass to count on to finish. And Tolvanen is getting on the board, 2 power play goals in his last 2 games. So I really think that he's the sort of dynamic talent that they needed. And so, yeah, I definitely am all on board with the overcall here as well. So let's go from there over to Florida at Columbus. Florida, a minor road favorite, minus 127, and the over-under 5.5. Should note, Florida comes into this game at 15-5-4, picking up points in 19 of 24 games on the year. Columbus 11-14. 2 teams going in very opposite directions, but you wouldn't really know it based on this line. So what are your thoughts here?
I like Florida in this matchup. Not overly, like not times a million, but I do think Florida is actually a pretty solid team overall. Again, it does feel like goaltending could be the Achilles heel that could break, and Columbus could put 2 goals in. Columbus did actually change up their lines from the last game. Unlike most teams, they have this interesting pairing of Roslovic with Line and Bjorkstrand that we haven't seen. It was Atkinson there before, which I find interesting. So when you're making your correlations, make sure to look into that as a possibility for a cheap stack. But I don't mind Columbus here, but I just think it's like I would take Florida and to win this game most times. It does seem like they're in the upper echelon of these teams in this division, and I think they're for real. Like I downright think they're a good team. So I'm very interested to see in the Florida lines what they end up putting together, because they made some changes in the last game that, if they stick, could change a lot of the betting. One Mr. Mason Markstrom got time with the top line at the end of the last game.
Close.
I do not.
Mason Marchment.
Marchment. Oh my God.
He's not Swedish.
Yeah, not yet. But yeah, no. So he's at 525. If he plays with Barkov and Huberdeau, I just put $10 on that for fun. But we'll see what ends up happening there. More to the point, I do like this game a bit on the over, which I don't know if it's really rooted in too much fact. It's tough because Florida's been really, really good on the season at shutting teams down and stopping high danger chances. They also started the year with a very weak run of games. When they played the better teams, they gave up more chances. So I don't know how real that is. I just think that this game, 5.5, I think it gets to 6 or over. And I kind of like these Columbus 1 point, line A minus 118, Bjorkstrand minus 117. I think that line is going to really carry the load for them, and they're really going to be trying to produce and get good matchups for them against some of the lower tier Florida guys. So Matt, what do you think in this one?
Yeah, I kind of do think that the Line A Bjorkstrand is a really interesting sort of point to attack, in fantasy. As far as like betting wise, I kind of am interested in the Bjorkstrand 2 points plus 380. Like, you got to think if they get the 1 point where they're basically priced the same, line A plus 350, Bjorkstrand plus 380. If they get the one, that line's probably sticking together. I think they're a really good line. Bjorkstrand, he is on the second power play unit at the moment, but it does run through him more so than I think line A on the first power play unit. And Bjorkstrand just looks engaged. Like he looks really good. He's kind of been off our radars because he's not on, the premier lines at this point. But he's there tonight. So yeah, if you like the over in particular, Bjorkstrand 2 points plus 380, I think that's a, pretty good value. Myself, I am also very interested to see what the lines, look like. If we do, get someone like Patrick Hornqvist on the top line with Barkov and Huberdeau, to get a point minus 129 is a complete slam dunk. First power play time in general probably gets him, close to that as well. But I think that's this is one of the main spots where an information edge does exist in the player prop betting circles. So
yeah, both of these teams coming off tough losses. Right, correct. Yeah. So yeah. So I think they make some changes, and that's where you find that edge. And just all of these to go to score odds, I think are a little bit off. Not even like maybe not entirely, but like Barkov. And let's see what ends up happening exactly with these lines. But Bjorkstrand plus 225, as I already mentioned, seems pretty fair. If they end up putting a guy like Hornqvist on that top line with Barkov plus 220, I mean, again, jam it.
Okay. Looking at shot props, Bjorkstrand plus money over 2.5. If he's seeing 17, 18 minutes, like I project he should here, I do think that's a good number for him. And like
that's my favorite too. That's definitely
I want to make some Jonathan Huberdeau joke, but I'm just out of things to say about him. Like
every time that you bet against Huberdeau, he beats you. So
and now he's with Barkov, so it's like they're kind of tied at the hip, and it's like we'll see what happens. But I am kind of projecting that those two will be a part of my my multi-entry set on DFS circles. So to his credit, he has been shooting a bit more. So this shot prop odd isn't the worst thing in the world with Barkov being such an elite playmaker, but I just probably won't touch it. Plus 140 for over 2.5. It's such a coin flip. It could just ruin your parlay, and it's just not good enough to put money on. Yes. Oh my God. Imagine. I mean, most of these games will actually be decided by the end of the third period. You think like, you have a 5-way parlay going, and Jonathan Huberdeau is sitting on 2 shots. He drives into the zone. And he does, 3 360s and backhands off the boards and just refuses to shoot the puck for you. I could not imagine a more tilting experience than watching Huberdeau wanting him to shoot the puck.
It can be nauseating.
Right,
but are you ready to get over to the team most likely to win? Oh, no, we're not there yet.
Nope. We actually still have a 7:00 game. All these games are 7:00 or earlier. So make sure you listen to this early. There's no time to dilly dally while you're making dinner or whatever. Like you really gotta get these bets in. So Toronto hosting Winnipeg. Toronto coming off of 2 tough losses on the road in Vancouver, minus 177 here. I feel like I did this. I came on this show. I was like, look, this Toronto team, they're for real. They're just, they're cracking necks, cashing checks. They're doing everything you want them to defensively. They're putting the puck in that offensively. And then they go to Vancouver and put up 2 stinkers. Like Vancouver, it kind of boggles the mind. I don't even know if I'm willing to jump back on the horse here though, because, the guy that we absolutely love to ride, Austin Matthews, we can't really go with him because his coach is out there saying, oh, his wrist is impacting his ability to shoot the puck. Well,
good.
Do I want Austin Matthews if he's not going to, if he's inhibited on shooting the puck? Like, he's still a good shooter, I'm sure, but like, is he going to be an elite finisher like that? I don't know. It scares me. And I'm willing to bet that a lot of people aren't, grinding Coach Keefe, coach speak, let's say. And I'm just a little bit worried that like there's not a ton of value here. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably just gonna fade Austin Matthews in DFS and not really touch his props, just at the risk of, him aggravating that wrist injury and just getting
He's
pulled.
9.2.
It just doesn't. Yeah. I'm not in love
Ovi's
with the
8.3.
matchup. Yeah.
Like, Ovi. Come
Even
on.
Winnipeg coming off of a 7-goal against game. You got to just not start Brossoit. Like, they got to figure that out. But then Hellebuck comes in and gives up a 4-burger. So I digress. But no, I just, this game is really, really strange to me. I do like the Toronto side. I do think they could find a way to get it done here. I love Tavares. I know that you're pretty high on him as well. With, Matthews potentially, having an injury or something going on with him, the Tavares, if you can get maybe like a 2-point prop for him, it's not on DraftKings, unfortunately. I also like the Kyle Connor over 2.5 shot on the other side of this. If he stays or is with Scheifele in any capacity, he wasn't with Scheifele last game. I didn't mean stays, but I think they're going to make a big change. We didn't get lines yet on Monday, so it's hopefully Tuesday we see what they do. But I really like him to have over 2.5 shots in this matchup. Other than that, I mean, I think I'll just maybe take the Tavares point at -148 on DraftKings, or if it's better on FanDuel, look over there and move on. But did you have any other things you wanted to mention in this one?
Yeah, no, I was just going to mention John Tavares. I think he's my favorite play in this one, both in fantasy and in betting. Like, I like his shot prop -148 to go over 2.5. I think that's a really solid number. His 5-on-5 line with William Nylander, just they do look really good. Tavares also gets the added benefit of playing on that top power play unit. Kind of interesting. They put Boyd there instead of Joe Thornton, but that's kind of besides the point. So we get Matthews, Marner, Tavares, Morgan Riley, and then Travis Boyd, just kind of like, all the dudes that we want to see on that top power play. They're there. Maybe besides William Nylander, but we're not betting him to score at the exact same odds as John Tavares, are we? So
No.
I think that's enough to say, though, on this Toronto side.
All right. Now we get to the most likely to win team in Tampa. First off, you're probably just going to look at the odds and say, all right, Tampa, okay, what do we got? -335. And you're just going to not do that because what's the point? Detroit +275 again. You're not going to do that. On the road, too, for Tampa, but nevertheless, a 5.5 over-under. I'm just not touching it. I talked about this on the Morning Skate pod. I've given up on understanding what Tampa's going to do. If they get up 3-0 early, they might just bench Point and Palat and do whatever they did against Chicago or whoever they played. I think actually maybe it was Detroit, that one game. They just
11 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, 11 minutes. And I don't know if they're going to do that again. That could have been a total one-off. I'm obviously not on the bench. Maybe they had a shift where they just didn't give it their all. Their coach said, all right, sit down. I don't know. I don't care. I'm just not touching this money line. I might not touch anything from this game at all. I just don't like it. I hate these kind of matchups. They infuriate me. So Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm sort of on board with that whole money line thing. I just think there's more fun things to bet on this one, and I do think you can get better value than that, even though it's probably the right call to just lock in that win. But crazier things have happened. Shout out to anyone who tailed us on Prize Picks on Thursday night, and that under on Bobby Ryan looking pretty fresh. You can get him to not pick up a point here at -177. If you're feeling a little, if you're feeling wild, think this game goes like 1 or 2-0.
Better jump.
I actually think Anthony Mantha to not get a point is even better, -148. Like, I get it. They're fine players, but come on. Like, Tampa is so good on both ends of the ice. They got torched by Patrick Kane a couple times, but let's be real. Like, who wouldn't? They don't have a Patrick Kane.
In that, I'm just going to bet on the shutout.
Let's see. We can get those odds too. It's +540 for the shutout.
Yeah.
So
sure.
Yeah, it's actually a decent, higher leverage type bet. But the one player I wanted to highlight is Andre Palat. I feel like I talked about him a lot to begin the season, maybe a bit more recently too, but he's really morphing into a guy who's shooting the puck a ton. I think a part of it has to do with he's no longer playing with Steven Stamkos at 5-on-5. So he's a trigger man on the power play on that right half wall. And he's now playing with Point and Anthony Cirelli at 5-on-5, who are both, very willing to distribute the puck. So I think that getting him to score at plus 205 is a really, really solid number. And yeah, any other players that you think are of interest here?
I mean, all of these odds stink at this game. Like, honestly, at the end of the day, I just, they're very frustrating. I just probably, like I said, I think I'm just going to full on fade this game for my parlays and everything else other than putting some money on the shutout. I probably would include that in a major parlay. So no, I think if you're doing any goal odd, it's just Palat at plus 205. He's been the guy shooting the puck. If you can get his shot prop odd, I take it. It's not on DraftKings. So those are the two that I'm most interested in, just kind of tangling what you were saying there. Other than that, nah, I'm just staying away from this game. It's not worth it. I think Tampa's going to win handily, but give it a 3-0 win for them. Maybe even take that odd, and it just, who's going to be those guys? I mean, it could be freaking Coleman and Cord, who went off last game, and then you're just sitting there just crying over taking a point to have a point or something stupid, and that ruining a otherwise very good parlay. I know I could end up being completely wrong on this, and I know Tampa could come out and score 3 goals in the first period. It'd all be that point plot line and whatever, but I'm just fading it.
Yeah, agree to disagree, DJ. I know you're scared of this, that, the other thing.
Scared.
But I'm all in. I'm all in, baby. I'm all in.
Scared money don't make no money, and here I am being scared.
Speaking of all in, though, if there was ever a spot, man, Dallas hosting Chicago. Dallas is minus 134. The last time these two teams played, Dallas lost 2 games in overtime. The last time we saw the Stars, they lost a game in overtime. Dallas minus 134 money line. I just cannot believe that at this point in the season, we're 2 months removed from Chicago being the league laughing stock. They come out, they play pretty well. Let's be honest. They're playing fine. They're getting really good goaltending, which was unexpected. And then Dallas kind of flat, so far this year. So I think Dallas turns around sooner than later. I feel like this one has a pretty sizable edge in favor of Dallas money line. Just minus 134 seems way, way off to me. So any thoughts on that or the over under or anything?
I mean, I'm definitely on the Dallas side. I do agree with that. I do think I'll end up considering that in a parlay and just in general. The over under, I guess I'd slightly lean to the over, but it's not very strong. I think you could talk me into the Kane to Brinkett line scoring a goal or 2. Did they not play together?
No, they do. They do.
Right? They did. Okay, I'm sorry. And then just how good was that? Ben Pavelski Goryanov, right?
Yeah.
That was the line. They had 10, 12 shots on goal, something ridiculous.
20.
How many? 20. Okay, yeah. They had a million shots on goal. It was just
Pavelski had 10, Goryanov had 6, and Jamie Benn had 4. Like just a ridiculous game for them.
And I think they could definitely blow the doors off the Chicago team as well with something like that. Ruben Hintz could be back. Is that where you're going with this?
Yeah. So basically, we're not sure Hintz's sort of ailment, honestly. Sort of feels like it's a pain management thing more than it is like, hey, he just needs time to get better. Like this sort of feels like something we found out at the end of the year. He's playing with like, I don't know, a floating knee or something ridiculous. And it's like, dude, just, take care of yourself. But he seems to be gunning it out. So we'll see, if he's, in for this one. But if he's not, there is a ton of value here. A guy like Jason Robertson stepped up to the top power play last game. I like him a lot. We've talked about him a few times, Nick's brother for those Leafs fans out there. But he's just a talented dude, just in a good spot. So I really like that. And then, this line of Pavelski, Ben, and Gurianov, they should be power play 1 correlated. Like they are, they're not the best players in the world, but they are in one of, I think, the best matchups going against this Chicago team that does turn up the tempo. They're coming off of a dominant game against Nashville. I think that they, come back and make it right. I think Dallas takes this one honestly kind of easily. And yes, I've been burned. I do remember, vividly saying the same thing about the Columbus game, and Columbus, I think, put up their 1 win in like 7 tries or something. So it happens, but man, I just feel pretty good about both the over and the Dallas side of this game.
Yeah, I mean, it unfortunately isn't on DraftKings, and I don't find it on FanDuel either. But I think the Miro Heiskanen point, if you can get it, especially at plus money, I definitely feel good about that. They did have him on the first power play. If Rube Hintz isn't back, as you mentioned, Robertson on that first unit,
Yeah,
very cool.
Yeah, one other small note there. John Klingberg missed on Sunday due to his wife had a kid. He should be back on Tuesday night. However, on Saturday, we saw that Miro Heiskanen was quarterbacking the first power play anyway, and that John Klingberg was on the second unit. So, that doesn't really have much of a relevance for, say, betting on DraftKings Sportsbook, given the options available to us. But on other books, I think that does leave some, good value out there for a guy like Miro Heiskanen, who we should expect to be, a premier point producer as a defenseman in this league, getting, that premium power play one time. So,
lastly, favorite bet from the game, Joe Pavelski over 2.5 shots on goal plus 120. Like, I know it was a 10 and that was kind of a huge outlier recently, but if they keep that line together, I think it's going to have shots. It's going to produce shots, and I think Pavelski's going to get 3 at least. So
I completely agree. I think that's the best on the board. So let's talk recap maybe a few of our favorite bets here from these 9 games, and then a couple of GPP type daily fantasy stacks to get us started.
I think the Sabres Flyers game over 5.5. That feels really good to me. The Flyers could do it all on their own for all I care. But I do think the Sabres could net a couple. I mean, that Eichel Hall line, I've been saving Eichel. I do want to get to him in daily fantasy where I think he's quite a bit more relevant. He could have a 2-point night and, Philly could have a 4-goal night and all of a sudden, boom, hits. So I like that one a lot. I just think the pace is really there. So if either of these goalies, and Philly's penalty kill has been really bad. Sabres power play has been really good. That's kind of where I think the edge starts and it gets going. And Philly's goaltending doesn't come together, which it definitely has been susceptible in the past. That game hits for sure. So
yeah, I'm just going to set up a tape recorder for my favorite bet of the night and just get up and walk away when we start these segments, because Andrei Svechnikov over 2.5 shots. Just make that an auto bet. Just, write your little code, or just someone figure it out. Just send that to me so I can just do it without having to think about it.
We need a GIF or a Jiffy if you're feeling crazy, of Matt saying Svechnikov over on the shots. Just if you know how to make it.
I mean, yeah.
A meme?
Yeah. Okay.
Moving on.
Oh my God. So anyway, that's my favorite bet of the night. Like, it's not fun. It's not crazy, but I think it's just profitable. So we'll do that yet again.
All right. Very fun. We'll get to DFS, but Svechnikov, one of my favorite plays over there as well. I think the Ovechkin 2-goal game is very in play, or if you don't want to do it, I do think a shot prop is pretty fun. I think I'm going to have it. 4.5 is risky, but plus 120. I really like their power play. I like him staying on there the whole time for it. If New Jersey gets to do a little bit of trouble, I think he hits it for sure. So I'm willing to bet on that, or the 2-goal Ovechkin game at plus 475.
Ooh, spicy. All right.
Spice.
Okay, for my second one, I'm going to go with this Islanders money line. I'm pretty sure that they are a comparable team to Boston. They're at home. I like this line out of them. Fun fact, I saw on the broadcast this weekend that the Islanders have played every single game this year with the exact same decor. They've used 6 defenders all season. That's amazing. With COVID even, just like somehow these guys are just, so they're very sure in their system, let's say. They're not trying to figure anything out on the fly. So there's something to say for consistency on the defensive end.
So with that being said, let's get over to the daily fantasy slate for a couple of our favorite stacks. Matt, you want me to go first? I already teed myself up. So
yeah, go for it.
Lead off. Yeah. Eichel, Hall, maybe Cousins, maybe Reinhart. I kind of think Reinhart might end up finding his way back there. But it is really just way too cheap for a power play 1 in a good matchup against a bad power play, bad penalty kill. 6K Eichel is just the spot. I mean, it doesn't make any, I guess it makes sense because he hasn't produced the points, but the minutes, I think the shots have been decently consistent. He hasn't been quite the rate shooter that we're used to, but I think that could definitely regress back. to where it should be. He's actually been pretty sound defensively as well. So I think that line could end up really fighting their way to get a couple points and winning a GPP. Hall 4,700 is not correct. He's been very, very good offensively, just hasn't had the points. Eventually that's going to work for them. I know the Sabres have been bad and it's been miserable, but this could be a spot where, even if they lose, a 3 to 5 game and that line gets 3 points and wins a GPP. So I'm really in on Eichel here.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a leap of faith, but I'm with you there. The price just doesn't make sense. The underlying numbers are there for Eichel and Hall. Honestly, they have, I think, combined 4 goals on 120 shots this year. That'll turn sooner than later. So all right,
pain.
My top stack, I'm going to go with Tampa. It's pretty straightforward. Andre Palat is just underpriced on DFS sites, for the shooter that he has been lately and the goal scorer that he's shown he can be in this league. Not to mention the matchup with Detroit. It's just like, a cakewalk. So I'm going to go Tampa 1 point Palat, and then either Anthony Cirelli. He's a bit expensive, so I might just go Victor Hedman instead, get that full power play correlation. But I think that I'm building a lot of my teams around Tampa and just taking what I feel is pretty certainty that like this Palat character is just a guy who I really want to build around at this price.
All right, my other stack I'm going to have is the Ovi Carlson Oshie. I think that power play ends up hooking up for 2 goals, and I really want to get a good piece of Ovi in this matchup. I think that his kind of, return to that elite rate shooter is coming back, and it's taken hold, and I think you're going to get like a 5-6 shot on goal and assist, or 2-goal game from Ovechkin, and Oshie and Carlson are definitely could be recipients of that. So that's where I'm leaning, and that's where I think I'll go. I think if you're getting kind of crazy, which, sometimes, or at least a lot of times you don't want to do this. If you don't have the money for a guy like Carlson, I'd be okay with taking Schultz power play 2, just because Ovechkin's going to play the full power play. So if you really like Ovechkin, I think that's a worthwhile thing to do when you play Ovi, is to look at the power play 2 and say, well, Ovi's out there with that too. So whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if you're new to the DFS streets, Ovechkin is probably the one guy who you can literally play with any player on his team and think like there is a chance that they score together, because Ovi's just always out there in prime offensive opportunities. And, not many guys have usually it's like the full line is out there at those moments, but it's literally just Ovi. He just stays out there, as long as he wants.
Might be the best goal
scorer
of our generation
in NHL history. Come on, DJ. Don't even try me. Don't even try me. He is absolutely the best goal scorer to ever live. Come on.
I'm so sorry that I disrespected it by saying he's the best goal scorer of our generation. That was totally out of line by me.
It honestly is kind of disrespectful.
All right,
anyway,
yeah, you're right.
Argument for a different show.
I'm not even arguing. I think you're probably right. I just wanted to say that, and you're like, no way. You're right. Gretzky was nothing.
Just poke that bear. The
only thing that makes me mad is you talking smack about the Bonnies, so let's not do it.
All right. For my second stack, I'm going to sort of ride with my favorite bet on the Islanders. I think that this Brock Nelson second line is just too cheap. You hear Brock Nelson, Anthony Beauvillier, and Josh Bailey for just about $10,000 on DraftKings. It's nuts. Nelson's been really, really good. Anthony Beauvillier's been seemingly promoted to that top power play unit with Matt Barzal. And then Josh Bailey, he's a playmaker. First and foremost, he's likely not going to get you, a goal in 5 shots or whatever, but he can get you 2 assists. Hell, he could have a 3-point game. And you're paying those prices in a tournament, not for their, the floor of say 5 points, but you're playing it because they could hook up for 3 goals and, win you a tournament that way. I think that's going to be super low owned, and it opens up a ton of opportunities to spend up for some of these really high priced premier players. So even in spite of a tough matchup, I think that the price does make it right.
All right. Thank you, Bob Barker, for that.
That's right.
Price is right. I think that definitely an interesting take. And, the main thing about this is it's 50K to first. A ton of entries are going to be in there. I don't know if that means you have to get crazy contrarian by any stretch. There's enough games here where play your favorite plays. You don't have to jam in a 4th line for fun because you're like, I can't have people dupe me. Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
That's not what we're saying. But I definitely think if you have a line that's getting, that's the thing about this Islanders line that you mentioned. They get just as many minutes as that Barzal line. So I'm fine with that take for sure. It's super cheap. So yeah, that's fair. If you end up taking, the Matthews, Marner, Riley stack, it's like, where are you going? Islanders 2 is a great spot for that. So
all right. Anything else you want to say before we head off, DJ?
No, just A10 championship on Sunday. So we'll mention it now and we'll mention it again on Thursday. So no worries.
Okay. Well, I mean, I will actually mention something somewhat relevant. 2 things, actually. So first, if you are interested more in DFS discussion, feel free to head over to our podcast, the Moody and D.J podcast. DJ and I do that, and we did a nice show for Tuesday slate. So make sure to head over to our podcast feed to check that one out. And then secondly, thanks to our sponsor, Prize Picks. Make sure you're going over to prizepicks.com. Use, what we talked about, our favorite plays, whatnot, to make your own card. You can pick up to 5 entries, use promo code, or 5 plays within an entry. Make sure you use promo code MMN, as in Mayo Media Network, when you sign up. Big thanks to them for sponsoring this show. So, DJ, I think it's time for us to go. Win our Sabres Bucks back. Finally, Jack Eichel gets it done.
I have so many Sabres Bucks in real life too. Like they're like, hey, your season's over in March. I was like, no, but last year it's always over in March anyways. And I was like, yeah, sure. They're like, oh, we're gonna give you all your money in Sabres Bucks, and I'm like, great. I can't wait to waste my money on more jerseys. I don't own that enough yet.
You're such a good Sabres season ticket holder. All right, best of luck, everyone, on this Tuesday. I'm Matt. That's DJ. Thanks, Prize Picks. We are out.